John, thank you very much for joining us today. How are things in Casper, Wyoming?
Oh, it's great in Casper. It's a beautiful spring day. Uh, Excited about the production ramp up and what's going on in the market.
So, as you mentioned, a lot has changed at Your Energy since the last time we spoke. There's been a lot of progression, and many people might not know this, but Your Energy is one of the largest uranium producers in the US. And I want to do a deep dive on your assets. You have two primary assets, Lost Creek and also Shirley Basin. And Lost Creek is the most advanced of the two. So, I want to begin our discussion right here. It is producing, but you are in the ramp up stage. Can you give us an overview of how that ramp up is going?
Yeah, ramp up continues to move in the right direction. We're increasing production, increasing flow. Head grade has been very, very good in the second quarter, so we're really excited about that. One of our recent header houses has come on really nice. People listening in have heard me talk a lot about manpower. We have our entire team now at Lost Creek, getting them trained, building in efficiencies. So that ramp up is continuing to move in the right direction.
And when you do get to full capacity, what will be the annual production at Lost Creek?
So our license at Lost Creek for the mine portion allows us to produce up to 1.2 million pounds per year. That would be at 100% efficiency. So we're not likely to get quite there, but we would love to be around 1.1, maybe even a little bit over 1.1 million pounds per year from the mine once we get to full production. The mill, we're allowed to do up to 2.2 million pounds a year, which would allow us to bring in product from either a competitor or from one of the other operations that we have designs on.
And so you have a permit or a license to produce 1.2 million pounds a year. Are you able to increase that, especially given that your mill is able to do 2.2 million pounds a year?
Yeah, we can. Certainly would require some additional licensing. That would not be too burdensome. Probably the greater challenge here is we have to respect the technology, especially the what Mother Nature can handle on wastewater disposal and the hydrology. So that would be our constraint. But can we grow that production profile if we chose to do so? Yeah, we can absolutely do that. We've got the team, we've got the plant to be able to manage it. We would just need to go through that permitting and handle the wastewater management, but we can do that.
And what are the resources at Lost Creek and also the grades?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a great deposit there with about a 13-year life expectancy going from today. The resource there, we've got about 12.7 million pounds of measured and indicated. The grades are lower, but it's an in situ mine, so that has less of an impact. Grade there is around 0.048, but when you look at our grade coming out of the ground, it's been very high, and so that's a nice offsetting factor. In addition to that M&I pounds, we've also got a little over 6 million pounds of inferred resource. And one of the great things about Lost Creek that I really like to talk about, and it's really highlighted in our technical report, is we have a room to explore. We have over 35,000 contiguous acres there in the basin that a lot of it has not been explored. We know that there are oxidation reduction roll fronts that terminate without any drilling on the ends, and we would love to be chasing that this year. And in fact, this year we've put a little bit of money aside in our budget to chase some of those, try to grow the resource, try to find new roll fronts. So lots of opportunity there for exploration at Lost Creek to grow that resource.
And John, you mentioned that at Lost Creek, it's you mine via ISR or in situ mining, and there's many benefits associated with this type of mining. Maybe you can just tell us what some of those benefits are.
Yeah, broadly speaking, the benefits are environmental and economic. I'll start with the environmental. We don't need tailings. We don't leave behind an open pit or spoils piles, anything like that. All we do is install water wells, and when we're done, we restore the groundwater. We take out the well heads in the buildings. Within a few years, the ground will be completely reclaimed and it can be used for unrestricted use. So it can be used for anything. So right now in our mine units, if you go out there, you're going to see grass, you're going to see antelope, you're going to see wildlife using the mine itself. There's very little activity. And in fact, the in situ mine, the mine portion itself, in the off shift hours, we operate with one person in the mine. Just one is all it takes. So the environmental footprint there is very small. The carbon footprint is also very small. On the financial side, on the economic side, because you don't have to remove the overburden, because you don't have to go underground, you don't have tailings, any of that to deal with. and a very small workforce, very low capital entry point. It just helps to make it very cost effective. We're mining here in the US some very low grade deposits using in situ mining, and we can compete, especially from our Lost Creek and our Shirley Basin deposits. We can compete on the global scale. So in situ mining, if you look at the cost curve around the world, generally speaking, the lower 50% of the cost almost exclusively in situ mines. And if you look at the upper 50% of the cost curve, almost exclusively conventional mines. So we're happy to be deploying that technology here at Lost Creek and eventually at Shirley Basin.
So having said all that, John, what is the operating cost and what is also the all-in sustaining cost at Lost Creek?
Yeah. So operating cost at Lost Creek, if you take a look at our tech report that we've got filed, we're looking at $16, $17 a pound operating cost. If you look at the all-in cost for Lost Creek as we get ramped up, it's important to say that, and we start getting over that million-pound a year run rate, we're looking at cost of around $45 a pound or a little bit north of that. So to put that into context, the spot market is around $70 a pound. Long-term market's been around $80 a pound. So we're well in the money compared to where the market is right now.
So excellent margins. Now you
Yes.
mentioned you're still in the ramp up stage. Has there been any issues during ramp up?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very transparent about that. People, that's been our biggest challenge. Fortunately, that's largely behind us now. But just getting people at a remote mine site has not been easy. And then so many people left the uranium mining industry in the US when the market was depressed for so many years that the industry really atrophied. So it was a challenge not only to get experienced people for UR Energy, for our company employees, but also some of the contractors that we use, like the drillers. They had drill rigs, they could deploy rigs, but they had no one to work on the rigs. So it's taken a while for that supply demand to come back into balance. It finally has. Rigs are much more available now. Rigs are calling us, not us calling the rigs. So we're in a much better place there. But that's been by far and away the biggest challenge for ramp up in Wyoming for ourselves and for a number of our peers.
And John, I want to provide a bit of a visual for our viewers, but you're based in Casper. And how far are you from Lost Creek and how far are you from Shirley Basin?
Yeah, so Lost Creek is almost directly behind me. It's about a 2 hour drive here from Casper. The nearest town to Lost Creek would be Rawlins, Wyoming. It's a population of about 9,000 people, and that's a 1 hour drive. So Lost Creek is fairly remote. It's in the middle of the desert, really no communities of any size around it. Shirley Basin would be off to my right, to the southeast of Casper. It's a 1 hour drive, paved almost all the way. So as we look to be bringing staff on at Shirley Basin, we believe it's going to be remarkably easier. We've already hired about 12 people, mostly professionals. They're working out there today. We're drilling, working on construction. So we think it's going to be much easier to bring that staff on for Shirley Basin.
Just because it's so close to Casper?
So close. And it's close to a much bigger population center than Lost Creek is. Casper, we've got a population of pushing 60,000 people. The Shirley Basin mine is a well-known mine. It's right off of a heavily traveled highway that's paved. And so people know us there. They see the signs, and they've had a lot of family members that have worked at that project over the years. It's very common when I'm around town and I talk to people and they learn I work for UR Energy in Shirley Basin. They say, hey, my dad worked there. My uncle worked there. I even know a couple of people that grew up in the company town out there back in the 60s and 70s. So it's a very well-known project.
So let's talk about Shirley Basin in a little more detail now. As you mentioned, it was a producer at one time, but it's not now. You're actually under the construction phase right now. Why don't you give us an update on where you are in construction and when will you start producing?
Yeah. So construction is going well. We've had a great spring going into summer here, so we're right on target with construction. Excuse me. So that's going quite well. And we've got the compaction done on the soil for the satellite building. We'll be starting to pour concrete on that in the coming weeks. And we're targeting being done with construction by the fall of this year, going into winter of this year. We will have to go through a pre-operations inspection with the state of Wyoming. That will likely take a few weeks. So when we talk about when are we going to start up production, probably be very early 2026 is what we're targeting. one of the benefits to that project is there's so much infrastructure already there. There were already some roads, there were already some buildings and power lines. We've done upgrades on all of that, though that is all complete. We've got the monitor wells installed for mine unit 1. We're sampling those. We've been doing piloting for the first header house. In fact, piloting on the first header house is done now. We're moving on to well installation. And it's also very heavily drilled. Most of the resource there is in the measured category, over 8 million pounds. And so we don't have to do delineation drilling or exploration drilling there because it's so well defined. We can go straight into production drilling. So that's going really well. Penetration rates on the drill rigs is very high. A single well can pilot 3, maybe up to 4 wells per day because it's shallow and good digging. So it's a great project. We're really excited to be there. And it's worth noting that that's really where in situ technology was invented. Starting back in 1961, they came up with the concept, and by April of 63, they had deployed in situ mining at that project, and it was very successful. So we're excited to bring in situ mining back to its birthplace here early next year.
And you mentioned the resource is 8 million pounds.
That's correct. And the grade is really good there. It's much higher than at Lost Creek. And so we're excited to be bringing that into production. We're around over a little over 0.2%, a quarter percent grade. And so great project, shallow, well-defined buildings are there. We'll operate it as a satellite facility. So we're building ion exchange columns here in town through a contractor. That process is well underway. They've been sending us pictures of the completed columns. And so we'll collect the uranium from Shirley Basin on that resin, and then we'll simply truck it over to Lost Creek for processing. It's about a 110-mile drive. And that way we don't have to build out the back end of the plant at Shirley Basin. That'll save us quite a bit of capital. And the capital expenditure at Shirley, we're looking at around $41 million all in. We've already expended quite a good chunk of that. And so we'll keep moving forward. We're well funded to complete that work.
So just to clarify, the excess capacity that you have at the mill at Lost Creek, you're going to use the pounds from Shirley Basin to feed that.
That is correct. Yeah, that's right. We'll load the resin on trucks, ship it over to Lost Creek, do an elution on the resin, and then the barren resin we simply take back over to Shirley Basin, recycle it over and over and over again so we don't have to buy new resin.
And can you also touch on what the operating cost will be and the all-in sustaining cost at
Yeah.
Shirley Basin?
Yeah, so Shirley Basin, the cost will be slightly more than at Lost Creek. So we're looking at operating costs a little bit north of $17, $18 a pound. We do have a technical report that's available on that, that's linked on our website. But the all-in cost for that project, or some people may refer to it as break even, will be right around the $50 range for that project.
And just to summarize, when up and running in full production, Lost Creek will produce 1.2 million pounds a year, and Shirley Basin will be producing 1 million.
Yeah, those are the license limitations for us. We can expand that if we desire to do so, but that's what our license allows us to do. And I should mention as well, both projects are fully permitted. We're not lacking any permits. We're ready to rock and roll.
And right now, of course, you're focused on construction and eventually production at Shirley Basin, but what's the land package like at some point in the future? Do you also plan exploring there like you will at Lost Creek?
Yeah, we do have some opportunity to explore, not directly within the land package at Shirley Basin, but we do have claims surrounding it that are not contiguous, but they're within pipeline distance. And so we would love to do some exploration there. We're trying to figure out right now if we want to do that exploration this year or if we want to push that off, trying to figure out what our priorities will be. Likely the priorities for this calendar year will be around LC East, out by Lost Creek, North Hadsel, and Lost Soldier. Those are 3 of our exploration and hopefully moving into development stage on at least one of those.
John, let's move on now and discuss your balance sheet because you do have 2 projects on the go and there's a lot happening at both and they're going to require a lot of funding. How much cash do you have on hand and how will you allocate that in the coming year?
Yeah, so at last report, we had 66 million in cash, no financial debt. So we've got a very strong cash position that we believe is going to see us through this year. In addition to that cash position, we've got some great revenues coming in this year. We'll be selling about 440,000 pounds. That's going to give us around $27 million in revenue this year to add to that capital that we have in place right now. I did mention that our big expenditure this year will be at Shirley Basin. Again, $41 million or so to build that out. We're on budget. We're on target. We remain on target. In fact, I had a discussion with our chief operating officer yesterday. We're getting ready to let one of our major contracts that's remaining on that, and it's on budget. Just comes in right on target of what we expected it to be. We have a couple of more major contracts to let on that, but so far that is all looking good. But that's really where we're going to be dedicating our money to this year is the build out at Shirley Basin, continuing that ramp up at Lost Creek, get to those economies of scale this year.
You touched on some of your contractual obligations. Maybe you could just expand on that. How many contracts do you have, and are they with U.S. utilities or European?
Yeah, so we've got a number of contracts in place right now. The total contract book is a little over, let's see, gotta look at my numbers here. We're 7 contracts total. A couple of them are with European entities. We are not able to disclose names. 5 of them are with U.S. utilities. We have been able to talk about one of those, Constellation, who had some fantastic news that they've signed a major contract to supply electricity for the next 20 years to an AI database system. And so we're excited to be a part of that story. We're continuing to look for opportunities to contract, but we believe pretty firmly that the price of uranium is going to continue to go higher. And so pumping the brakes just a little bit, we'll continue to look for good opportunities. But between utility demand, really being pushed by carbon-free desires for that type of energy and big data, small modular reactors, all of that's going on in the background. And then you also look at the demand that's coming from the U.S. government, Project Pele, HALEU, LEU projects that have been funded, and the government will be buying domestic material for those is the preference. We're just pumping the brakes. We think there's some good opportunity to sell some more pounds there.
And John, you already provided a lot of detail on your 2 assets, but maybe you can just provide a summary for us as to what shareholders and investors should look forward to in the coming months in terms of catalysts.
Yeah. So the catalyst going forward, we expect to have good news on ramp up at Lost Creek. I think all eyes are on us in that regard. So we'd love to get that put out in the press. We'd like to have some good news there. That should be a great catalyst for us. That's our number one objective is successful ramp up at Lost Creek. And then beyond that, building out Shirley Basin, getting it ramped up, doing it on budget, doing it on time. Those are 2 great catalysts for us. We're also doing exploration this year, so we hope to have some good news on growth of resource and also maybe discovery of some additional roll fronts, additional deposits. We're in a target-rich environment. Every time we've gone out and explored, in particular at Lost Creek, we've been very successful. So it is a forward-looking statement, but we believe we've got some great opportunity there. And beyond that, I think as you look at the market, beyond UR Energy, but there are catalysts in the market as we look at global supply demand fundamentals, the miners simply are not keeping up with demand. And we believe that's going to continue to put pressure on the uranium price. We don't pay too much attention to the spot price. We trade more in the long-term market. That's what we watch. It's at a great price at $80 a pound. That is a fantastic price for us. But we believe that that's not enough to incentivize enough global production to bring supply and demand into balance. We think it's going to take closer to 90, maybe 95. So we expect in the next 18 months, 2 years, that we're going to see 90, 95. That's what our assessment is, our internal assessment. And so I think that's going to be a great catalyst for UR Energy stock, in addition to the ramp up and the build out of mines.
And John, as we wrap up, investors have many choices in how to invest in uranium and uranium producers and developers, but maybe you can just summarize why they should be looking at your energy.
Yeah, we're a proven producer. And there are very few proven producers around the world. We've demonstrated our ability to produce. We've demonstrated very low costs of operation. Would encourage investors to go look at our financials back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and those years had some fantastic years working on the same projects now, bringing them back into production. And we've got the team to be able to do that. So when investors are looking, where do I jump in? Where do I invest in a mining company in the uranium space? It is a very, very small universe. We're one of the very few, and we're operating in a safe jurisdiction with a known project. So we're a known entity. So that helps to de-risk this story. So that's why I think investors should really be looking at us.
Well, John, that was a great overview of your energy, and I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today and sharing the story.
All right. Thank you. Appreciated the opportunity.